I heard my own name spoken in a way that didn't sound angry or cruel, just settled, final, like a door closing softly instead of slamming. I was standing in the hallway with a mug of coffee in my hands, still warm, when my father's voice carried out from the living room. He didn't know I was there. That mattered more than anything he said next. "She shouldn't be there," he said calmly. "It would be embarrassing." There was a pause, the kind that means someone is waiting for agreement. Then he added, "We can't risk how this looks." For a moment, I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stood there staring at the wall, listening for something, an objection, a hesitation, anything that sounded like defense. My brother spoke after a few seconds. His voice was lower, controlled. "I understand," he said. That was it. No argument, no discomfort, no pause long enough to suggest doubt, just acceptance. In that instant, I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding or a passing comment. It was a decision that had already been made. I wasn't being excluded from one event. I was being removed from a future they had carefully planned without me. I set the mug down on the counter because my hands were starting to shake. I didn't want it to fall. I didn't want to make noise. I walked back down the hallway the same way I had come, quietly, like a guest who had overstayed her welcome. I left the house without saying goodbye, got into my car, and sat there staring straight ahead. The coffee I'd poured for myself earlier was forgotten. It went cold. So did something else. That was the first time I understood what it feels like to be erased by people who once knew every version of you. Growing up, I never questioned my place in my family. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. My brother and I shared childhood secrets, late-night jokes, and the unspoken loyalty that comes from growing up under the same roof. He was older, more confident, and I trusted him without thinking. My father was strict, proud, sometimes distant, but I believed that pride meant something permanent. I didn't understand then that pride can be conditional, and that conditions can change without warning. Everything began to shift when my brother met Eleanor. She came from a world that looked elegant from a distance and felt restrictive once you were inside it. Her family didn't speak loudly. They didn't reveal too much. Every conversation felt measured, every laugh slightly delayed, like it had been approved before being released. Their home was large in a quiet, intimidating way. Not flashy, not excessive, just unmistakably expensive. Everything matched. Everything had a history. Everything implied expectations no one bothered to explain. My brother adapted quickly, not dramatically, but noticeably. His posture changed. His language softened. He stopped interrupting. He listened more than he spoke. He began dressing differently, carrying himself like someone who belonged in rooms where influence mattered. I watched him shift, thinking he was just growing up. I didn't realize that while he was reshaping himself, I was becoming a problem. I didn't fit into Eleanor's world. I never tried to. I worked independently. I valued comfort over status. I spoke honestly, sometimes without polishing my words. I didn't dress for impression. I dressed for myself. I believed that being genuine would always count for more than appearances. I was wrong. In families that worship image, authenticity feels like a threat. The first clear sign came with the engagement dinner. I didn't hear about it directly. I saw it online. A perfect photo, elegant table, candlelight, smiles that looked practiced. My brother's arm around Eleanor, her ring positioned just right. I wasn't there. I wasn't mentioned. I wasn't even an afterthought. When I asked him later, he sounded uncomfortable. He said it had been small. He said it wasn't intentional. He said Eleanor's parents were very particular. That word followed me everywhere after that. Particular. As if I were an item that didn't meet quality control. I told myself not to take it personally. Families drift. Lives change. But then came the conversation in the hallway, and denial stopped being an option. After that, the distance grew quietly. No confrontations, no arguments, just absence. Group messages stopped including me. Plans were discussed after they happened, never before. When I reached out, replies were polite but brief, as if I were interrupting something important. I became someone who existed only when convenient. When I did see Eleanor, she smiled in that courteous way reserved for acquaintances. Her parents barely acknowledged me at all. And my father began talking about things he'd never cared about before: reputation, perception, legacy. I listened and realized that words like fairness and loyalty had quietly disappeared from his vocabulary. I stopped visiting as often, not because I was angry, but because every interaction left me feeling smaller, like I was intruding, like my presence required justification. I focused on my work instead. I poured energy into building a life that didn't depend on approval. It helped, but it didn't erase the ache of knowing that the people who raised me had decided I was inconvenient. The final confirmation came at a formal event my brother insisted I attend. He framed it as reconciliation. "Just come," he said. "It would mean a lot." I agreed, even though something in me already knew how it would end. I wore something simple. I practiced being neutral. I promised myself I'd stay briefly and leave quietly. From the moment I arrived, I felt it. Conversations paused when I approached. Introductions were vague. I was Daniel's sister once, then not introduced again. People glanced at me, assessed me, and moved on. Eleanor stayed close to her parents, rarely meeting my eyes. At one point, she pulled my brother aside. I didn't hear what she said, but I saw his shoulders stiffen. When he came back, his smile was apologetic and exhausted. I left early. I sat in my car and cried, not because I was humiliated, but because I finally stopped hoping. I understood then that love in that family came with conditions, and I didn't meet them. What none of them noticed was that I was watching. While they were curating impressions, I was observing reality. I saw the tension beneath Eleanor's mother's politeness. I saw how her father controlled every conversation. I saw how my brother deferred even when he disagreed. Everything revolved around money and appearance, and the fear of losing both. People who guard their image that fiercely are always afraid. That fear owns them. Months passed. I rebuilt myself quietly. I stopped waiting for invitations. I stopped explaining who I was. I focused on friendships that didn't require me to perform. Life became steadier, quieter. Then one day, an invitation arrived. Heavy paper, formal language, my name written clearly. At the bottom, a handwritten note from my brother saying it would mean a lot if I came. I knew exactly why. Someone important would be there. Someone who knew me as more than an accessory. Someone whose opinion mattered in Eleanor's world. I accepted. The night of the event, I arrived calm. I didn't dress to impress. I dressed to feel like myself. I didn't look for my family. Within minutes, someone recognized me. They greeted me warmly, openly, praising my work and asking genuine questions. Their voice carried, heads turned, conversations shifted. Suddenly, people wanted to know who I was. I saw my father's face across the room, confusion first, then concern. My brother looked stunned, like he was seeing me clearly for the first time in years. Eleanor's smile tightened. Her parents listened carefully as others spoke with respect. Not politeness, respect. I didn't defend myself. I didn't explain. I simply spoke honestly, and that was enough. The contrast did the work for me. The evening ended politely, but something had changed. The image they had protected cracked, not because I attacked it, but because I didn't fit into it. Days later, my father called. His voice was careful, regretful. He said they may have misjudged me. I told him the truth. He hadn't misjudged me. He had chosen comfort over character. I didn't rebuild bridges after that. I didn't wait for apologies. I walked away with clarity. Belonging that requires you to disappear isn't belonging at all. And people who are ashamed of you in private don't deserve you in public. They hid me once. Now they remember me every time they're reminded that authenticity doesn't ask permission.